Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. My name is Jerry Smith. I'm an ordinary guy. My height is 5 feet 9 inches and my weight is 155 pounds. I have brown hair and brown eyes. I got average grades in high school as well as in college. I'm in good shape for my age. I'm 42 years old. I work as a middle-level manager in a clothing retail chain. I grew up in a harsh neighborhood and my size caused me some problems there. If you give up, you'll be beaten to a pulp. So I've never given in to anyone. Sometimes I got my ass kicked, but usually I punished the opponent myself. After a while, troubles began to happen to me much less often than before. Nevertheless, I continued to train in the boxing gym until I stopped doing it about 10 years ago. Some of us were engaged in mixed martial arts. It was much more difficult, and that was my only hobby. I am married to Joanne. She is 42 years old. She is a brunette, 5 feet 6 inches tall. She has a slender figure and a very beautiful face. We met in the first year of university. She studied law, but we took 2 courses together. At first we just talked, then we started dating. Joanne was quite popular at school. All the frat boys wanted to be with her, but she was restrained with them as far as I could see. She and I became a regular couple and became close in our sophomore year. It was her first time and it was almost the same for me. We stayed together until graduation. She went to the state law school. I got a job at a local bank. We got married that summer after graduation and got along very well. We had different role-playing games. Sometimes I was her professor. Sometimes she was the leader of a support group. Sometimes I was a robber or her hairdresser. We had naked evenings where we had to stay naked no matter what happened. We had dominance and switching games. It took Joanne 3 years to graduate from law school. All this time I supported us thanks to my work at the bank. Joanne was very smart and took first place in the class. Then I got a job offer from a large firm in Washington, D.C., and I really wanted to do it. I was looking for a job in the area and found a position as a branch manager of a bank. We moved to Washington. They rented an apartment in the city, not far from her work. I had to get to the suburbs, but I could do it by bike or by subway. We didn't have a car. That first year in Washington was difficult. Joanne worked maybe 65, 70 hours a week. I worked less, but I cooked dinner, did the laundry, and cleaned the house. She earned the same amount as me, and it looks like she's going to get a pay raise every year. We were in good financial shape, but our personal lives suffered. We met about twice a month. When we did it, it wasn't as good as it used to be. After a while, Joanne often came home late after work. Dinner was cold even if I was late. I began to think about us and especially about her. I tried to understand what her working life was like. She didn't talk about her too much at home. She worked with a group of lawyers and legal assistants on a corporate merger deal. As the time of the merger approached, she was less and less at home. One Friday, I stopped by her place at lunchtime to surprise her. I knew she didn't like to have lunch alone, so I decided to take her to a nearby place for a snack. I arrived at noon, but the receptionist said Joanne was gone for the day. Where did she go? To court? No, I don't know exactly where, but I think her group went to lunch, probably at the Cicero. The secretary looked funny when she said that. Well, it's lunch. Why for the rest of the day? Maybe I'll see her at home early. The secretary lowered her eyes. Maybe. I saw that she was very uncomfortable and said goodbye. Thank you. See you later. Outside, I headed for the metro station opposite the Cicero restaurant. After buying a tuna and cheese sandwich, I sat outside and watched the street. About an hour later, Joanne left the restaurant with a group of people. There was another woman, Lydia, whom I knew from social events. There were 3 men with them. 2 of them were in their 30s, both big men. The third was older, graying, not so big. I assumed he was Paul Dorgan, Joanne's head of department at the firm and a partner. I didn't know the other 2. Joanne was walking between 2 young men. One was dark-haired, while the other had light brown hair and a beard. I might have seen them at a social event, but I wasn't sure. I crossed the street to cut them off. The dark-haired guy put his arm around my wife's waist. She didn't move away. I ran up behind them and patted Joanne on the shoulder. She turned around to see who it was and, turning pale, said, "Oh, Jerry, what are you doing here?" The guy was still hugging her, even though she turned to me. He looked upset. Joanne stepped away from him. "Fred, this is my husband, Jerry. Maybe you met him at a picnic." Joanne blushed. The other 3 also seemed agitated. Paul Dorgan stepped forward, holding out his hand. "Jerry, I'm Paul. I really remember you from the picnic. You played softball." I shook his hand, looking at Fred the whole time. He was over 6 feet tall and stocky. I really played softball, and indeed on a picnic. I usually play hardball. I was still looking at Fred, and he was staring right at me. Fred, maybe we should do this right now, I said. He couldn't answer anything right away, and Paul didn't give him that opportunity. Jerry, calm down. We've all just been to lunch. The merger case is over. We had a little celebration. We're going back now. I think maybe Fred got a little carried away. Joanne recovered enough to speak. Jerry, I hope you won't make a mistake. Fred may have just gone a little overboard with the celebration. I kept my eyes on Fred, and he didn't look away either. I smiled. His hands were clenched into fists. He was gathered in a bunch, ready to fight. I was waiting for him. I was completely relaxed. Physical confrontation, was one of the things I liked the most in life. It could happen at any second. Fred's friend with the beard grabbed him from behind and pulled him aside. Fred tried to resist, but Paul shouted at him, "Stop right now! Take him away, Bill!" Fred relented and let Bill walk him out. By this time, a small crowd had already gathered there. Joanne came between me and her colleagues. "Jerry, you have nothing to worry about or get upset about. Nothing happened." Paul said, "Joanne, maybe you should take the rest of the day off. Go home with your husband. There's not much to do right now, and tomorrow will be a new day." "Okay, thanks, Paul. Come on, Jerry, let's go for a walk." I said, "I am very disappointed. I'll have to go to the gym later." But I left with her. We headed for our apartment. She was in the opposite direction from her office, but it was in the direction they were all going when they left the restaurant. The other four turned around and walked back to Cicero and their office. Quite an eloquent act from my point of view. Joanne and I walked around the city for 30 minutes or so. We didn't say much. When we returned to our house and went inside, I brought us some water. I sat on the sofa and she sat across from me on the dining chair. It was a small apartment. I said, "So tell me about what happened, all about this event." "There's not much to tell. You jumped to conclusions. He was just hugging me with one arm. There are several mistakes in your answer, and I'm sure you know that. You're lying and underestimating me. I'm not a jerk even if I'm not a lawyer. Don't lie to me anymore." Her face wrinkled up somehow. She didn't say anything, and she began to breathe rapidly. "Just calm down and tell me what's going on. I know you took time off from work for the rest of the day. I know that you were all leaving work when I saw you. And, more importantly, old Fred was ready to fight right there on the street. He was going to try to hit me. If Bill hadn't grabbed him, we would have fought right there. Therefore, I think he has some feelings for you that make him hostile towards your husband." She began to cry quietly without sobbing. "We've all worked so hard. We all got closer. Fred and I worked especially well together. He wanted to celebrate this event alone with me. And I agreed. Would you bring him here?" "No, he said he has a room at the Hyatt Hotel." "Where were the others going?" "The three of them were going to the Hyatt, too. Those three had another room." "Is Fred married?" "Yeah, he has a 2-year-old son," she sobbed again. "What about the other three? Is this some kind of common thing for them?" "I think Bill and Lydia may have met in secret several times. Paul just wanted to see." "Bill and Lydia are married, with others?" "Yeah, Paul is too, but his wife is sick." "Have you ever cheated on me except for this one?" "No, and it wasn't a hoax. You saved me." "There is no particular difference. You have destroyed all my trust in you." "I think if I had used it, it would have been a big difference compared to what happened today. But I see that trust can be a problem. I do not know what to say. I will never let myself get into this position again." "That's what you're saying now. But what's going to happen at your office on Monday? They'll all want to know what we talked about. Besides, this Fred guy won't give up, whether he has a child or not. I've seen how much he feels for you. What are you going to do about it? Maybe you should quit this job?" "I can't just leave. We need money, and I like this job. I'm really good at this job, and I'm going to get promotion after promotion." "I understand. How do I know if you're following a straight line? Because I need some kind of comfort. Let me think about it." I thought about it. Leverage was needed, and leverage had to be found. "That's what. You'll write a confession. It will contain everything you've told me about, even in more detail. Sign it and give it to me." "Why, I understand. There will be a threat to them all." "Yeah, I'll make copies for them all, and I'll add a little note. I want you to swear to the truth of the confession under penalty of perjury." That's what we did. She spoke in detail about what had happened, and even about her suspicions about what was going on between the others. Then we went to have dinner at a cafe down the street. She relaxed a lot when we drank a bottle of red. Then we returned home and immediately went upstairs. They quickly undressed and she fell to her knees. Then I made copies of the confession. I put them in 4 envelopes marked personal and confidential. And he added a note. In it, I made it clear that if I found out about any further machinations involving my wife in any case, I would mail the confession to all their spouses. An exception would have been made to the one who would have informed me about her. In this case, no mail would have been sent to this person's spouse. I thought it would create some tension in the team, but does it make me feel better? It was Saturday, and I went to the gym for a few sparring sessions and hard work with bags to vent some leftover anger. Well, maybe there wasn't that much of it. The guys noticed it. I'm having trouble finding a partner, but a lot of work with a punching bag has done its job. Jane, one of the few women who worked out at this gym, asked me what was wrong with me. Just some life problems. I'll deal with it, she smiled. Despite her hobby, she was a cutie, with a good figure under that workout bra. Well, if you need help or anything else, let me know. I will do that. I stared at her longer than usual and she didn't look away. But then we both turned away. I think she just got mad watching me work with a punching bag. Nevertheless, I remembered her words in case Joanne got something wrong. But she didn't do it. On the way home, I went into a trendy spy store and bought some gadgets. So I have 2 dictaphones now. One is very small, similar to a pen. In fact, it was a pen. But he also made up to 12 hours of recordings, presumably activated by voice. I put it in Joanne's purse when I got home. There was a slight danger that she would notice him, given the condition of her purse. I could remotely download data from this computer. The other recorder went into our main room. It was hidden under the sofa next to the bedroom door. I could turn it on and off with the remote control. I left it on when I wasn't at home, and usually turned it off when I was at home. On Saturday night, we went to the cinema, then bought ice cream. It was a pleasant date, and neither of us mentioned our problem. On Sunday, we also relaxed. I was watching a football match on TV. Joanne was reading a romance novel. Yes, a love affair. Don't ask me anything. We had dinner at home and went to bed early. I felt much better, especially since both dictaphones were in place. On Monday morning, we went to work. I gave the envelopes to Joan to give to her team. I knew she would do it because I believed she loved me, and I saw this trick as a way to keep us together and allow her to continue working at the firm. Besides, I had my recording devices. I lacked trust, so the devices were necessary. I rode my bike to work. It was a normal day, and I was cooking fried chicken for dinner when Joanne came in around 6 p.m. And how did your team like my envelopes? I called them all to the conference room. It's one of those places where there are no bugs. They were all worried about Friday. I said you knew right away what was going on. I told them that you asked me to quit my job, but I wanted to stay. Then you developed this plan. I gave them the envelopes. They all quickly became unhappy. It's interesting because it took them a while to appreciate what you did. Everyone except Paul, who immediately understood everything. He was really smiling when he read it. I think we should hire your husband, he said. This document is the product of a cunning and resourceful mind. Anyway, she continued, in the end, they all saw what he saw. I admit, that there were a lot of sidelong glances at me. But then everyone just left and went about their work. I don't think the team will last long, maybe just for a day or so. If I were the manager, I would separate us. Later, I listened to the uploaded material. The meeting went exactly as she told me. However, I found that after that, everything else became so boring that it became useless. Here are the technical solutions for you. Despite the fact that I saved Joanne, I was on the verge of breaking down because of our marriage. I couldn't keep an eye on her all the time, and I wasn't sure of her continued loyalty. She had many chances to deceive me. Women like her constantly fell for the bait of seducers. Strong pressure, soft pressure, subtle pressure, but still pressure. Maybe she learned her lesson, and maybe she didn't. I decided that we needed to have a further conversation. It was about 4 weeks after the incident. Her team was sent out in different directions, but they all stayed at the DC office except for Lydia. She's someone I wasn't worried about at all. One evening after work, before dinner, I was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 glasses of wine. Joanne, we need to talk, I said. It bothered her. She sat up and looked at me. What? I thought we were doing well. Actually, it's good. I can't seem to get rid of the distrust problem, even with your confession. You know that there are some loopholes in this document. I'd like to get a better explanation of why you agreed to cheat on me with Fred. I am. God. I liked him. I found him attractive. And I didn't think you'd ever find out since it was supposed to be a one-time thing. That's a lesson I've learned. I love you and I only want to be with you. But you knew it would be risky. Your whole office knew what was going on. If you had considered it logically, you would have had to give it up. But I think you had a real passion for Fred, so strong that you risked your marriage and he risked his. It makes me feel slighted that you were so passionate about him. There's nothing I can do about it. I told you I'd be honest. Anyway, I'll never know what it might have been like. Our hugs were pretty tight. It was only a few times, but that was when we were dancing, snuggled up to each other. A woman can understand a lot. He seemed big. But that's not why I agreed. Maybe partly. But mostly I was just close to him and I liked him. As if it was a reward for the successful completion of the case. This required close teamwork. It wouldn't work if we didn't get along with each other. But this work was constant and very close. I've been with him more than I've been with you for months. So he took my place somehow? I don't see this as a one-off case. Maybe that's what you thought, if you thought at all. No, he didn't take your place at all. She sniffed again and rushed at me in a rage. Relax, I just needed this conversation. I hope that you will analyze what you said and use it to avoid another episode. Because one more episode will finish us off. There won't be another time. You know it was completely related to your job. The intensity of the case has brought people working together. One thing led to another. You will have the same dynamic in the next project. I just hope you anticipate this and stop it before we get to disaster. I will keep all this in mind. Don't worry. She looked at me. Let's go upstairs, she said. We can eat later. We went upstairs, and we ate a lot later, warming up the leftovers again. The following week, I took the opportunity to install a program hidden in the programming database on her phone. I could track her messages and the numbers she called. I listened to the recorder from time to time. There was nothing for 3 months. I asked for a conversation after dinner. I think we should try to start a family. Now is the time. Oh, Jerry, I'm not sure. What about my job? You want children. It's better now than later, when you have a lot more things on your mind. You can work during pregnancy. After that, you'll have to take a little vacation. But I can help. I don't have a job as stressful as yours. I did some day trading and I was doing well. We have enough money to find a house. What do you say to that? Good. If we find a house that we like, I'm in the game. We did find a house on the other side of the river, but it's still not far. It had 3 bedrooms, a nice kitchen, a patio, and was in a respectable neighborhood. I bought it. I paid for it directly, and it was issued in my name. Joanne didn't like it, but I insisted. I told her that it was the money I had earned, and the house was my gift to her and our future family. In any case, if we get divorced, the house will be treated the same as if it were in our joint ownership. She agreed. We moved in and she stopped taking the pills. It took 3 months before she became pregnant. We had a baby boy, Jacob. Joanne returned to work 2 months later. A nice lady came to us in the afternoon, until I arranged my job at the bank so that it was mostly an independent contract job from home. I drew up agreements with other banks, reviewed contracts, and did odd jobs that others thought no one should do. I also continued my day trading. I was getting even better at it. When Jacob turned 3, Joanne became pregnant again and worked hard until she gave birth. Twins. Of course, we already knew in advance that there would be a girl and a boy, Jennifer and Todd. This time my mom came to help with the kids. He and my dad moved to Arlington. Joanne returned to work 3 weeks later. Jacob was fascinated by his siblings, just like me. I loved being a father. I quit the bank and started working alone as a consultant on the mechanics of bank mergers. I mostly worked at home, on the computer, and on the phone. My mom started spending less time with the kids, saying she needed to see Dad more. They retired and went on a trip. Joanne became a partner in her firm when Paul retired. The children are now 10 and 7 years old. We're 36 and we look solid. Well, that's how it is. Joanne wasn't really close to her parents. They lived far away from here. We saw them on vacation, maybe 1 week on vacation in the summer. When her father got sick, she went to visit him, but he got worse and died soon after. Joanne has 2 sisters who lived next to her mother. So after the funeral, Joanne immediately returned to work. I started to worry about her working so hard. I wondered again if she was moving away from me again, or maybe she fell in love with someone else. Our lives were in order, given the presence of children. But now they were old enough and we had more time for ourselves. Joanne was also not the busiest mother. She loved children, of course. She played games with them, wrestled on the floor with the twins, made them do their homework when she was at home. They loved her too, but I raised them day in and day out. I drove them to school and drove them home. I went to football and coached them. My work was taking up less and less time, but I still spent a few hours at the gym every week. I sparred and worked with bags. Sometimes I came home with bruises or cuts. It has become commonplace. Joanne threw a holiday party in honor of her partnership. There was a dance dinner at the Hyatt Hotel. The firm was large, and more than 100 people attended the dinner. This dinner wasn't just for her. 2 of her other colleagues also became partners. Fred was already a partner. A year ago, we even went to his place for dinner. He brought his wife with him, who was very pretty. Now they also had 3 children. We had a pleasant evening at this party. Fred and I had a polite conversation when I shook his hand. After all this time, there were no macho tricks. Fred and his wife were also at a partner's party. When the dancing started, I danced with Joanne for a while and then we sat down again. A younger man approached Joanne and asked her to dance. Joanne said, "Jerry, this is William Pullen. He works at our firm." She let him take her hand and they went down to the dance floor. While they were dancing, Fred sat down next to me. Then it was just us at the table. "If I were you, Jerry, I'd keep a close eye on Mr. Pullen," Fred said quietly. "Just a few words. I remember our little problem and I wouldn't want to be accused of not warning you, even after all this time." I watched them dance. "Are they close at work?" "We are close. They work together every day. I'm sure she mentioned him." "No. As far as I remember, no." Fred said, "I remember what it was like when we got close. The dynamics may be similar to this one. That's all I want to say. I don't think anything too bad has happened yet." "Thanks for the tip. I would never spoil my relationship with you and your family except, in one case." "That's not going to happen." Fred got up and walked away. Pullen and Joanne stayed on the dance floor for one more dance. It was a slow song. I was very attentive. Pullen was over 6 feet tall with the build of a swimmer. He moved well. He had sandy hair and blue eyes. These 2 clearly didn't look like they were involved in anything wrong. They just looked like a dancing couple. Maybe that's what Joanne and I looked like. I was a little worried. I thought about asking her about it, and if they keep dancing, I thought I'd step in. But after a slow dance, he escorted Joanne back to our table. She asked him to sit down, and he sat down. Joanne said, "Jerry, William and I have been working on the Monroe case for some time. I thought I should introduce you." "Hello," he said. "Hi, how long have you been working at the firm?" "About a year. I came from New York to work in Congress, but Monroe took up a lot of my time." "Is it going to end soon or?" Joanne said, "We hope that this case is close to completion, but nothing is set in stone. This is a regulatory issue. We will present it to the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, next month." "Oh," I said. I wanted to yawn, but I didn't do it. "Where are you staying, William?" "I have an apartment in the northeast of Short. I thought I was going to spend time on the hill. Maybe it will be later. I can still ride my bike to work." "I used to do that, but now I'm mostly at home." Joanne said, "Jerry runs his own consulting business for banks. He can do this from our house and be sure that the children are all right. These are good conditions for us." "Yes, it sounds perfect," Pullen smiled. I didn't like his smile, but I didn't react in any way. "All right," he said. "I'll go. I'll have to go home early." "Is someone waiting?" "Yeah." He left with a slight wave of his hand. I watched Joanne watching him. She turned to me and saw that I was looking at her, staring at her. "He's a good guy, Jerry." It seemed to me that she was a little defensive. "I'll take your word for it, although I haven't heard anything about him. Why?" "I don't know. I thought I mentioned him. We have been working together for some time now. I think we just haven't talked too much about my work lately." "Yes, I think it's true. Let's dance a little more before we leave." The rest of the night went well. We danced merrily. When we got home, we had fun in bed. It's better than it's been in a while. I thought about role-playing games as if I were Pullen, but I didn't do it. The next day, Saturday, I took out my recorder and put it in Joanne's purse. I just didn't feel comfortable around her. Of course, I didn't need her to go astray, considering our children and all that. The voice recorder and the phone program new for the new phone were just to calm me down, but that's not how it turned out. When Joanne came home from work that Monday, I found time to sit down at my laptop and download the recording. When she went to bed early, I listened to the recording through headphones. I didn't like what I heard. In the early morning, a conversation took place between Joanne and Pullen. "Hi, Will. Come in." Sounds of a chair on the carpet. "I liked our dance on Friday night. Thank you. I hope Jerry wasn't annoyed." "I admit that I was surprised when you invited me to dance when he was there. I told you so. I saw Fred talking to Jerry while we were dancing." "So what? What does this have to do with us? Anyway, he didn't seem hostile at all. And we didn't do anything wrong, nothing even suspicious. A long time ago, Fred and I were close. He and Jerry almost exchanged blows right on the street, and nothing happened. Well, maybe that's how it should have happened. But it never happened. And so far," he said, "nothing has happened to us. For now." Jerry will be on his guard, I'm telling you. Whatever we want, I won't risk my family. He would have left me, and he can just beat you up. He was going to beat Fred up. He can't beat any of us. And why would he leave you? You earn money for the family. Ha! Somehow he makes a lot of money in stocks. I don't even know how much, but he bought our house right away 12 years ago or so. Besides, don't be tempted to get into a fight with him. You've been warned. Why would he find out anything at all? We could be careful. I know that's what you want." "No chance, Buster, no matter what I want. It's time to get to work." I was more than a little annoyed by what I heard. I could see that if they were given even half a chance, they would make love like rabbits. I saw the same situation as with Fred, just like Fred said. I had to think about whether I wanted to save Joanne this time or not. I felt the inevitability of divorce because of Joanne's infidelity. Sooner or later, she would have lost her way, most likely with some big dick from the firm. I was thinking about what a divorce would be like. I was thinking about the kids. I assumed that I would get custody, and she would be able to see them on some kind of schedule. Our finances were not a problem. I had a lot of money, but she also had a very well-paid job. I also transferred a decent amount to offshore accounts. Her law firm will probably find something. Not all. Anyway, if she got rich after the divorce, I would still be rich, and I would still have my little trading talent. In general, I was not so afraid of divorce. If that had happened, I should have done everything in my power to protect the children from too much injury. I didn't think Joanne would really want to be a guardian. It made me think about what her life would be like after the divorce. She really didn't have any friends, not even close ones. Sometimes she dated women from her job, but she was really completely absorbed in her work. I've had guys in the gym and women in the gym too. I was friendly with other parents and sometimes went out for a beer with my fellow coaches. I went to ball games with 2 of these guys and we got to know each other pretty well. But Joanne wasn't that friendly. She didn't spend much time at home to be able to communicate with friends. While I knew some of the guys from our neighborhood and their wives, Joanne really didn't know anyone. But I didn't think she would talk to anyone much. Not like we had, even now. And that's what made me interfere in her relationship with Pullen. I loved her, and I've loved her for a long time. I couldn't bear the thought of her being alone in this world. I arranged with my parents, who were in town, to pick up the children from Friday to Sunday afternoon. Now I've spent a lot of time listening to recordings and checking messages and phone numbers. I wanted to see how far things had progressed. A conversation took place between the 2 of them. Apparently the case suddenly turned out to be close to completion. Joanne said, "Will, I think we can finish this in about 2 weeks. We may have to go to New York to complete the work. Maybe we could do it in the middle of the week and stay overnight." "You're a very bad guy, Will. I think Jerry wouldn't like the idea of us going away for the night at all. Just tell him it's necessary and he has to trust you, that's all. He's not a fool. He would have some way of checking what we were doing. He doesn't trust me. Don't tell him until the night after tomorrow. Then he won't be able to arrange anything." Of course he could. He could have just come with me, offered to take me to the show, and I would have to put up with it. Listen, Joanne, when this case is over, I want to celebrate with you and only you, alone. That's what you want too, right? Yes. I'll figure something out. We could just rent a room in the city, or you could come to my place, on a business day. I think it's going to work, Joanne said. Take a taxi, stay at home from lunch to dinner. It can work more than once if everything goes well. Joanne laughed. Agreed. Shake him up. There were some shuffling sounds. That's enough. Joanne was breathing heavily. I'm leaving. See you tomorrow. The door opened and closed. That evening, after the children had gone upstairs, I called Joanne to the kitchen table to talk. She looked worried. I think you and your assistant Pullen have become too close. I've lost confidence in you. I was wondering if I shouldn't just let things take their course this time, and you'll reap what you sowed. But I thought I owed you more than that. And I was thinking about our children. When Joanne heard this, she was overwhelmed with emotions, sadness, and anger. Her face was about to wrinkle, but then she pulled herself together and sat up straight. I don't deny that I have feelings for William. I would really like to act in accordance with them. Are you saying that you were just going to let this happen? I was ready for this. Then we just have to get divorced. This will put an end to us. But I thought we could discuss this before all this happens. I love you, and I'm doing my best to stop this before you go too far. Well, she snorted, thanks a lot. Joanne, really, it's on your conscience. You need to either control yourself or make a decision to start a new life. I hope that before you make a decision, you will think about what this new life might be like. You'd have a fun romance with a toy boy. And after that? Are you really going to divorce me because of an affair? There is absolutely no doubt about it. I don't want to get divorced. What I really want is, I think I need some room to maneuver. What does this mean? You want to be able to make love and not get divorced. Dream on. Why don't I get at least once a chance to test someone else? You can experience anything you want. I will submit the documents on Monday. Make arrangements to move somewhere as soon as possible. You'll get a sofa in the living room tonight. Jerry, stop it. I was just joking. I wouldn't ruin our marriage. You weren't kidding. We both know that. I won't believe any of your promises. I don't want to take on the burden of constantly watching you. Anyway, you could just sneak out one afternoon with that boy. We're done. Joanne asked, what about the kids? You can spend as much time with them as you do now, maybe more, considering they rarely see you. I am fine, if that's what you want. But if you give me some room to maneuver this time, I'll never ask again. That's it. Go. Joanne got up and packed her bag. She's gone. And I rented a room at a motel where I spent the night. The next morning, I got dressed and went to work. Will entered her office just after 9 a.m. We can do it this afternoon. I don't have anything urgent, just like you. Good. Let's have lunch at your place. At noon? Great. Jerry kicked me out last night. I'm staying at a hotel. I asked him for permission to, have an affair just once. He turned icy and threw me out. I told him I was joking. He didn't believe me. I don't think I would have believed myself either. What are you going to do? Get a divorce? Will looked worried. I'll try not to do that. I'm not sure if he's serious. If he divorces you and claims adultery, we could both have problems. Maybe we should cool it down. I don't want that. I want my affair with you, today. How can he even find out? Will was overcome with desire for Joanne. It clouded his mind. Good. They met right outside the office at noon. Then we took a taxi and went to his house. Will opened the door. Joanne turned and hugged him. She's been wet all day. She could feel his erection through her skirt. They had a very passionate kiss. Joanne stepped back and took off her blouse. Then she dropped her skirt. Will watched as she surrendered to him. She unbuttoned her bra and dropped it. Was it worth the risk, Joanne? Oh yes, she smiled at him. They spent the rest of the day in or near his bed. They didn't even have lunch. At 6, Will said it was time for him to leave, and Joanne got dressed. She thought about trying to get back home. Jerry couldn't have known what she had done. Maybe he changed his mind. She made sure to tidy herself up before leaving. Then I caught a taxi on the other side of the river. There was no one at home. Joanne thought that the children were probably at some kind of extracurricular event. She was sitting in her kitchen eating a sandwich. Then I drank a beer. Then she looked around the place where she had lived for so long. If she had to leave, she would be sad. She decided to brazenly talk to Jerry. There was no way he could have known what she had done, she told herself. She could have promised him that she would be faithful. She could point out that she had been faithful to him ever since she had a slip-up with Fred, which was not a slip at all. It was so long ago. Jerry and the kids arrived around 7:30 p.m. They were playing children's basketball. All the children were happy to tell her about it. Jerry just sat on the sidelines and watched. When they had all eaten, Jerry chased the children up the stairs to get ready for bed. Why are you here, Joanne? I thought I had made everything very clear. I have decided to withdraw my request for room for maneuver. I understand that it was a big mistake. I take it back. I just want to stay with you and the kids. It's a pity. Where were you this afternoon when I tried to call you? I had a meeting with a client. You know, we have a phone app that allows us to find each other's phones. I used it when you weren't at work. You've been in Will's apartment for hours. Any comment doesn't make sense. So what kind of meeting was it? How? How could you test me like that? How could I not check? You've been making love to this guy all day, and now you show up here and say you're withdrawing your request for freedom of maneuver. Such nonsense. We're done. He said it with emphasis, but without shouting. Jerry got up and went upstairs to put the kids to bed. He made them comfortable. They were all tired after a long day. When he came downstairs, Joanne was sitting at the table. I'm sorry I did that. I won't do it anymore. I still don't know why I did it. Just get out, Joanne. Wait. Tell me. Because I think you believed it was worth it, and that's why you did it. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. Joanne was a little defiant. Jerry didn't care. I will submit the documents as soon as I can. Don't come back here. I'll send movers and take your things to the place where you picked them up. Maybe I should take you to Will's, right? Joanne left. The divorce was easy for both sides. Joanne insisted on a free visit, but her finances were fine and she didn't ask for anything. Jerry didn't ask for alimony either. The children quickly got used to the new reality. Joanne picked them up every other Sunday for the whole day. As a result, they began to see her almost as often as before. Joanne and Will maintained their relationship for about a month. Then she became alert. He started dating a younger woman. She didn't mind, but she didn't like the risk of contracting an STD, and Will wouldn't use condoms. They ended the relationship. Joanne wasn't that upset about it. She was much better off with Jerry, who was much more resourceful. Jerry was pleased with how things turned out, except for one thing. Will. He couldn't be allowed to leave without getting a stomachache. Jerry used some time in the middle of the day to study Will. He also watched him from time to time. At first he saw Joanne with him, but later another beautiful blonde. He assumed that Joanna and Will were no longer in a relationship. Jerry hired a firm to conduct further research and surveillance on Will. He asked the lawyer to review the documents drawn up by the firm where Will signed the contract. Jerry found out that Will was an amateur boxer, sang in a church choir, and had relationships with several women, none of whom actually knew about the others. He also found out that the law firm paid the bill in Will's name for a much larger number of hours than he actually worked. Jerry's friend hacked into the firm's computer files. Jerry didn't think it was all a trick to make fun of Will. He got it. One day when Jerry was jogging, Will ran up to him from behind, quickly pushing him. They were in the park next to Jerry's house. There was no one nearby at the time of the impact. It was after 11 on Saturday. Joanne had the children. Jerry realized that he could benefit from Will's arrogance. Jerry, I know you're investigating and following me. Stop it. It's over between Joanne and me. I don't need your shit. Fuck you, man. I'm doing what I want to do, Jerry growled. He was laughing at Will. What are you laughing at? I took your wife. It's not that funny, is it? Good riddance. I see you didn't keep her for long. Ha. You're the kind of guy who can only talk, old man. Jerry could see that Will was getting more and more worried. Some people entered the park, but he did not see them. Will was very tense, as if he hadn't just come to talk. Jerry decided to push things along. Old or not, I can beat you like a drum with anything, so just fuck off. Jerry said that, but started backing away from Will. The latter took a step towards him, encouraged by Jerry's obvious retreat. Then he pushed Jerry hard. Jerry took the blow and fell backwards. He went down on purpose. Will stepped up to Jerry and released him, kicking him in the stomach. Jerry took the blow on himself, rolling to the side. He had foreseen that this would happen. He barely felt the impact, although he had a bruise the next day. People who came to the park ran up to Will, shouting at him to stop. Jerry jumped up when Will was momentarily distracted. He pushed Will. You're a brute, Jerry taunted him. He attacked a smaller and older guy. You should be ashamed of yourself. Will was on edge about it. He knew that Jerry was mocking him. He launched a full-fledged attack on Jerry. The people around the stage, 2 men and a woman, were too timid to intervene. Jerry let Will get closer, then turned around and punched him in the stomach. There was a loud ugh sound, but Will took a boxer's stance and landed an overhead kick straight at Jerry. Jerry couldn't help but admire it. He hit Will hard and knew he was in pain. Jerry dodged his right hand and punched Will in the stomach again. Then he landed a left hook to his kidney and pushed him to the swing and hit him several more times in the body area. Jerry stepped back and Will fell to his knees, clutching his stomach. Jerry turned and walked away. It all took less than 2 minutes, and the real damage done to Will was done in 20 seconds. The people who were watching came up to him and helped him stand up. Jerry crossed the street and ran away. When he did, he saw a police car with flashing lights but no siren approaching the park. Jerry had never heard from either the police or Will about the fight. He assumed that witnesses had told the cops that Will had started a fight and then lost it. Or maybe he just refused to file a complaint. Jerry decided that fighting with Will was enough. He knew that he had tricked him, and that if they quarreled again, Will could win. The two never saw each other again. Meanwhile, Joanne analyzed the whole situation, hoping to understand how she could lose control for Will's sake. She gave up a good marriage and a good family life for an affair with Will. Looking back, it was monstrously stupid. Joanne decided that she didn't really want Will so much that she gave up her family. It was her job, work. That was what she was most passionate about. That's why she almost used Fred. That's why she made love to Will. She loved her job so much that she wanted to use her colleagues, especially those with whom she worked closely. She kicked herself for not noticing it earlier. She decided that it was a flaw in her behavior. She would have to be careful in the future. Although maybe it was the closing of the barn door after the horses ran away. What she couldn't figure out was that the affair was her way of distancing herself from her family. This allowed her to work without feeling guilty about not conforming to the mom paradigm. Now the family was neatly divided into 2 parts, its part, every second Sunday. Jerry moved smoothly forward. He started dating about a year after the breakup, meeting a sweet woman, a single mother of 8-year-old twins. Her name was Naomi. They had several pleasant dinner dates. Then he invited her and her children to Saturday. They all got along well with each other. Jerry was happy because he really liked Naomi. He asked her to go to the resort with him for the weekend. About 6 months later, he proposed to her. She agreed, and the families were united. Jerry had to buy a new house with more bedrooms away from the city. He missed the old house, which was now being rented out, but the new one had a pool and a billiard table. There was a heavy pair in the basement, just right for Jerry. Jerry was pleased with the way things had turned out. He didn't regret leaving Joanne, despite their long marriage. She was an unfaithful workaholic. He was convinced that Naomi would not cheat. She was an elementary school teacher, not a lawyer working under pressure. He didn't feel the need to keep an eye on her as he had with Joanne. It was much more convenient and allowed more love to grow. She was really growing up. Jerry and Naomi both considered family to be the center of their lives. Their united family occupied them and brought them satisfaction. End.